Hello guys and welcome back. Sorry for the slight delay. The broadcasting was interrupted due to a breaking news because the president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, just announced his new cabinet. So I was just going through that on my Facebook wall. So back to my page here, and I'm just going to share this. If you're watching this and you also want to share with other people, just share the page so that other people can also watch this as we talk about the blockchain, Bitcoin, and the whole cryptocurrency landscape environment. So I'm just sharing this now. Hashtag Bitcoin. Let's spell Bitcoin correctly, please. Another wrong spelling. There we go. Hashtag cryptocurrency. Let's start with blockchain. And hashtag cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency. Okay, forgot the hashtag. Let's put the hashtag in there and post that. So that's posted now on my wall, so hopefully more people will be able to join us. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going through some of the stories which I collect during the day, and most of them will be dated today because I've collected today, and this is what people are talking about in terms of Bitcoin. So if Bloomberg starts reporting on this on a daily basis, then you know something is up. And also if you look at the sort of people who are making comments, for example, this guy, Blankfein, is the Goldman Sachs chairman and chief executive officer. So these guys they are specialists in all sorts of monetary instruments. And so they are looking at the blockchain, they are looking at Bitcoin, and they are being asked questions whether they are going to accept them, whether they are going to adopt them into their businesses and stuff like that. And so these are some of the answers they are coming up with. But already you can see that a few years ago, nobody was talking much about Bitcoin and the blockchain. People were just fixated on the negative stories which characterized its introduction because it was initially used on the dark web for nefarious activities such as drug dealing and buying of weapons and stuff like that, drugs. And so it did not start off very well. And one of the guys who was running this Silk Road website, which was accepting payment in Bitcoin for such criminal activities, was actually jailed. So it did not start off very well. But at the same time, if you look at every technology that there is, criminals will always have access to it. And so the fact that criminals are using knives or they are using they are abusing drugs does not mean that we cannot use a knife for. Knife is a double-edged sword. Okay, every technology, criminals are most likely to start using it. The car was probably was used by criminals because it was a quick getaway from whatever they were doing. Okay, so Bitcoin has undergone the same sort of initiation, but when these guys start talking, then you need to start listening. And when they say one thing, they could mean another thing. So, for example, Blankfein says it's too soon for a Bitcoin strategy. So they are monitoring the situation, and this is what he has to say. Something that moves up and down 20% in a day doesn't feel like a currency, doesn't feel like a store of value. Blankfein said Thursday in an interview on Bloomberg Television. If it works out and it gets more established and it trades more like a store of value and it doesn't move up and down 20% and there's liquidity to it, we'll get to it. So he's not ruling it out, but he's monitoring it, and it's the fluctuations, the volatility that they are worried about. Okay, but I think that's going to happen, especially with Bitcoin, because there is renewed interest in Bitcoin, and so it's going to surge up and then it's going to come down again. In fact, the value of the Bitcoin is dependent on the number of people who are using it. So these guys may be focusing on the volatility, but if you look at Coinbase, for example, Coinbase is a platform where you can buy and sell. It's an exchange, so you can buy and sell your Bitcoin. Now on Coinbase, I think something in the region of 200,000 people or something like that have signed up for Bitcoin in recent weeks. So that shows you something is afoot. People are getting more interested, and the Google search for Bitcoin is going up. Okay, so this is what he said. But what we need to remember is that a lot of the focus is on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but the actual technology behind the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies is called the blockchain, and it is the blockchain which is the revolutionary technology. For example, Bitcoin might experience so many problems, and the problems that Bitcoin is experiencing are the same problems that or are also problems that even fiat currencies at some point experienced. And with fiat currencies, we're experiencing problem after problem with fiat currencies. And what the Bitcoin is trying to do, what cryptocurrencies are trying to do, is to eliminate some of those problems. For example, liquidity is a problem. Inequality is a problem which is caused by fiat currencies. So the Bitcoin is trying to address some of those issues, and we're going to be talking about how they are doing this. Okay, so Goldman Sachs as a firm, he continues, has a long tradition. Of course, he also is talking about maybe being replaced at some point. Okay, so the blockchain is bigger than any bubble. So this is what I was talking about. People talking about maybe the Bitcoin experiencing a Bitcoin bubble or a cryptocurrency bubble, but we should not be worried about what happened to Bitcoin. Bitcoin might not even be around in the next 10 to 15 years. It might even be replaced by another cryptocurrency. So it's not about the Bitcoin, but it's about the blockchain, which is the technology behind it. The Bitcoin might experience so many problems that it might even be go out of circulation, because its existence is dependent on how many people are using it, and if people, it's about trust, as with any other currency. So it all depends on how many people are using it, and how many people trust the currency in order to use it, or to keep it as a store of value and stuff like that. So there's a currency war going on, just like there's a currency war between the major fiat currencies. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, I think Rykard or something like that, who's written books on currency wars. You can read those books and find out exactly what's happening. So with cryptocurrencies, the same thing is happening. although they are not exactly the same, they are doing different things because they are because what they are doing is all based on the blockchain, and the blockchain is just a recording system. A blockchain is just a ledger. It's a record of transactions. So the transactions could be monetary, or they could just be maybe in education. You're recording students' results from the time they start school to when they become adults doing PhDs and stuff like that. So if there's a record on a blockchain of all their performances, okay, it's easy to access them, and it's also difficult to change them. So you can't suddenly have a PhD like we've seen in Zimbabwe, for example. The first lady suddenly got a PhD within 3 months of wanting to get one. Now that would never have happened if her records were on a blockchain, okay? Because to be granted that PhD, we would need, there would have had to be consensus between all the people involved in the recording of results. So, for example, let's say there are 10,000 people around the world who are maintaining a blockchain of results. So if there was going to be a change, that change would have to be agreed upon by all the 10,000 miners who are on that blockchain. So it would be impossible to suddenly get a PhD if that had been on a blockchain. But because it's centralized, it means someone can decide to just issue one, and that's exactly what happened. Okay, so the blockchain is much bigger than any of these bubbles that may be predicted for the blockchain. Okay, and a lot of the people who are in blockchain do not like to hear about bubble, but the fluctuations are there. We cannot ignore the fluctuations. The volatility is there, and we can only try to explain why there is that kind of volatility taking place. Right, so that's one. Let's move on to another story. Forget Bitcoin. These 4 stocks are up more than 1,000 in 2017. So lesser known companies trading on stock exchanges in Japan, Hong Kong, and India have said their share prices to at least 1,000%, matching the cryptocurrency's ascent. So this is just a comparison of some of the stocks around the world which are doing as well as the Bitcoin. Okay, so it's not really specific to the Bitcoin, but just some of the companies around the world which are doing very well. So another story from Bloomberg again. Fed's Randall Quarles says Bitcoin could be dangerous for the financial system. Look at the sort of words they're using. Could be dangerous for the financial system. Quarles cautions against central bank backing digital currency. He says the focus should be boosting current payment systems. But there's a problem with the current payment systems because they are slow and because they are expensive. So that is the problem. If they can sort that problem out, maybe people will not opt for the Bitcoin. The reason why people opt for the Bitcoin is because it saves them money and it saves them time. So when you sign a check, for example, in the fiat currency dominated world, it can take up to a week for that check to clear. Whereas if you send Bitcoin within seconds, the person has their money and they pay very little transaction fee for it. So the transaction fee for, say, a transaction of £1,000 is probably the same as a transaction fee for, say, £10, because it's just a transmission of information. Okay, so the Bitcoin is just a transmission of some zeros and ones, some bits. That's why it's called the Bitcoin. It's based on bits, and bits are zeros and ones in computer language. So it's not. But if you were to send £10 and or send £1,000, using the traditional systems, you are charged more for £1,000. Okay, so like I said before, what Bitcoin is doing is solving some of the problems that consumers are facing or users of fiat currencies are facing, because these guys, Randall Quarles and company, they control money supply. They decide how much money goes into circulation. And so we have third parties who are responsible for or represent the trust between two parties. So if you go into a shop with your credit or your debit card and you're paying for, say, some milk or some bread, what actually happens is that your bank acts as the trusted party. So it's the trusted party between you and the shop where you're buying from. Whereas if it was Bitcoin, it's peer-to-peer, it's going directly to the person with the product, and you're paying them and you're getting your product there and there. So you should expect this kind of language from those people who the Bitcoin is trying to replace, because these guys are working for an institution which controls money supply, and the Bitcoin is on a decentralized system which makes everyone a central bank. So you become your own central bank. If we have, say, 100 people and each of them have £1, okay, that means if they put that money in a bank, it means the bank has, say we have 100 people with £1 each, so that's the bank has £100, okay, and the bank then can tell you that, the actual cash in circulation is only about 4% of the total money in the system. So if the total money in the system is £100, it means that only £4 exist as real cash. So you're competing for that £4. And although there is always enough of it for circulation, what these guys are doing with your money, with the rest of it, is not up to you. And you're being charged for keeping that £1 or $1 in the account. But if it was a decentralized system on a blockchain, it means that each person has their £1 on their mobile phone or on their cryptocurrency wallet. And if each person has their £1, it means that they can send transactions to each other without passing through a central point. So if you eliminate the third party, then you eliminate the charges that come with the third party. So these guys' jobs are threatened by Bitcoin, so you'd expect them to say things like that. But I'll come to another different person who probably thinks otherwise, but I'll come to that. So you can see that even within themselves, there are a few disagreements. They are saying conflicting statements. Another SF federal president says there is no plans to put US dollar on a blockchain. The Federal Reserve is not working on a cryptocurrency version of the US dollar, the head of one of its regional banks said. But he also says the other thing I think is interesting is this question of central bank issued digital currency. Right now, the Federal Reserve is not developing its own digital currency, but there is a lot of research going on around the world thinking about this question. So it says around the world, a lot of research going on around the world, but it also means they are doing their own research. Okay, so it's not actually said, but I think that's what it actually means. I think at this point it's really premature, very premature, to be talking about the Federal Reserve offering digital currency at this point. But it doesn't mean that in the next 2 or 3 years they won't be thinking about it. But it is something that we're starting to think about. So you see, so they are thinking about it, although some of them will tell you that it's dangerous to the financial system. But actually, they are thinking about it. Okay. So central banks have to do that. If they don't think about it, they are going to be replaced. And then this one here even the Kardashians can't keep up with Bitcoin trend followers. If you look at this graph, it's very interesting. It shows how the Bitcoin in blue, let's see if I can't make that bigger, but the Bitcoin in blue is actually peaked here, and then around here it's trending more than the Kardashians on Google search, because Kardashians is the most searched for item on Google, and Bitcoin has just surpassed them. And what sort of thing are people? What are they searching for? It's been derided as a fact, but that panders to the weak facets of human nature. But keeping up with the Kardashians, the reality TV series featuring an ensemble cast of the eponymous family has endured for what some would describe as 14 long seasons. Meanwhile, the Kardashian family has spun a business empire through prolific social media accounts that capture the world's attention with an endless stream of drama and glossy. So what has Bitcoin done? Let's see. As investors pointed to Google Trends shows searches for Bitcoin now far outnumber trolls for the Kardashians. Okay, so keeping up with the cryptocurrencies may be a tongue-in-cheek gauge of mainstream interest, but it comes as another attempt to project how much new money can pour into the market, according to Nick Collis, co-founder of DataTrack Research LLC, limited liability company. I think that's what that means. Okay. So data is being collected. The interest for Bitcoin is increasing. And some of the trending topics like the Kardashians are now being overtaken by a cryptocurrency, by Bitcoin search, which is almost going exponential at this rate. Right. Here's another Trump executive. Trump's Federal Reserve nominee, cryptos don't really matter today. So he says President Donald Trump's nominee for the chair of the Federal Reserve, current board governor Jerome J. Hayden Powell, participated in the constitutionally mandated U.S. Senate confirmation process by way of a hearing on 28 November 2017, and as expected, he was asked about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and he said it's something we monitor very carefully. So they are monitoring it, obviously. They have to monitor it because it threatens to disrupt banking as we have known it for centuries now. And one thing I keep on stressing is that every new currency is always come about as a solution to the old currencies. So you can only dismiss Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies at your own peril, because it is solving problems which the fiat currencies have been having for some time, and here's a solution to it. And because it's a solution, the adoption is going to be natural. And this is why the federal banks, the central banks, they are monitoring the situation closely, because they know that their very existence is on the line if they don't. So they don't matter today, they're just not big enough, and it's right to say that they're not big enough, because in terms of capitalization, I think this number 33 now. If Bitcoin was a company, the number of transactions taking place, the amount to about 200 billion or 300 billion, something like that. Because it's fluctuating, it's anywhere between 200 and 300 billion, and that's about 33rd in terms of the market capitalization of the major companies. Okay, I see if there is anything here. Nasdaq plans to launch Bitcoin futures in first half of 2018. Okay, so this is big now. If they launch futures, it means that that may stabilize the price of the Bitcoin a little bit, because anyone who buys futures should be guaranteed a return. And so if that happens, I think economists will help us here, but if that happens, it'll be another way of ensuring or of helping the Bitcoin to become a more stable currency, which means it may now be accepted as a store of value. So if the futures is launched in first half of next year, we'll be monitoring the situation, but that should mean something. Okay? Right, so this is now all news. So guys, that's it for today. If there are any questions, please ask in the comment section, and I will answer them in tomorrow's broadcast. Okay, so thank you for watching. I'll just archive these stories which we've gone through so we don't repeat them again tomorrow. They are archived. If you need the links, just let me know and I'll send you the links. Okay, so this we looked at yesterday, so this can also go. This can go. This can go. All these are now old. You see, anything which tells you that Bitcoin has gone up by up to 5,006, that's already old news, and that's only like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So Bitcoin news is moving very quickly, which is why this has become a daily show, because it's an opportunity to try to explain the three things which I think are important to understand. Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, and as only one of the cryptocurrency, but also as just an application of the blockchain. I think we looked at this. These guys have the largest underground shopping center in South Korea, called GoToMall, recently announced that it will start accepting Bitcoin beginning mid-September. Shoppers can pay with Bitcoin at the most 620 stores, according to local publications. So I think we looked at this 2 or 3 days ago. Okay. And South Korea, we looked at that. If you go to my, if you search my Facebook page, you should be able to see this. Or if you just go to my YouTube channel, because as soon as this is done, I'm posting it straight to YouTube, so that you can access it. It's Derek Tafuma on YouTube. You can find it there, and we can talk about this. So guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again in tomorrow's live broadcast. Thank you for watching.